All right, if council members who are present would join us in the main room, then we will get underway. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order the July 8th meeting of the West Sacramento City Council, the Redevelopment Successor Agency and Financing Authority. We're meeting tonight pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20, pursuant to which the City Council and our staff are meeting via teleconference that is shown live on the internet and on cable. To reduce the spread of COVID-19, members of the public have been asked to watch the meeting through one of these channels or through its recording, and to submit comments in writing by 6 o'clock on the day of the meeting. Those comments are available to all members of the public at the city website, right where the agenda and the video for the meeting are found, so they're easily accessible, and every member of the City Council has provided with a copy of those comments as well. The council did not meet in closed session this evening, so we're going to proceed to item 1A, which is presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of the City Council. Madam Clerk, have we received comments on item 1A?
Yes, we received one public comment.
All right, so we have received the one comment, and again, that comment is available to the public on the city's website next to this video feed you're watching there, and it's also been provided directly to each member of the council as well. And that comment is with respect to our the fees that are charged to commercial enterprises for their large dumpsters when they're doing work at their facilities to clean up and undertake other activities related to their business. So, Mr. City Manager just asked for future council updates in the newsletter or otherwise about that issue and inquiry that we received from the public. That would be appreciated.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I actually asked our interim community health director, John Robinson, to look into that and get in contact with the resident before the meeting.
Terrific. All right, thanks so much. All right, that brings us into council communications. Item 1B, are there reports or other communications from our liaison assignments as listed on the agenda? Councilmember Orozco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On July 2nd, I attended a meeting with the Yolo County Executive Commission on Homelessness. We discussed, we received staff presentation on several items and received an update on the Project Room Key program, which is now engaged in a coordinated exit plan. Essentially, as the community is aware, we had several people housed, people who were highly vulnerable, over the age of 60 and or compromised otherwise physically. And that program now with funding running out is need to be downsized. However, we'd also discussed the possibility of receiving a notice of funding for Project Home Key, which is a possible avenue for West Sacramento to continue providing services to the folks that are currently housed under Project Room Key. We have the permanent supportive housing project coming up in 2021, and I guess that the hope would be that we would assist the most vulnerable folks in our community in the continuum of being housed and provided services and other types of assistance, so that way they don't regress into the status of homelessness again, and or become even further compromised. So we also discussed the Commission's role in addressing homelessness and discussed priorities for the Executive Commission, specifically the coordination of housing and service delivery, cross-jurisdictional issues, development of homeless dedicated resources, funding priorities, advocacy, and public education efforts, as well as system-level performance evaluations, and discussed November ballot issues and whether or not we would be able to take a position on those. In addition, I also attended a meeting on Monday related to COVID-19 in the Latino community. It was convened by one of our colleagues across the river, Councilmember Eric Guerra. We received a presentation from the County Health Services Department, which relayed that over the past weekend, there were 500 additional cases recorded related to COVID. That was the information we received at the time. A lot of the increase was related to bars and family gatherings and other meetings where infection rates in the Latino community were tremendously increased. There was also a reference to the fact that service workers are more exposed than many others in the community. And there was a request for a more coordinated and broad effort to reach folks that are not receiving this information in a culturally appropriate fashion, specifically in the Spanish language, and or through community-based organizations that are trusted and have good relationships with folks who need to receive this information. So to conduct outreach and education, the Mexican consulate is offered to utilize their resources in order to outreach to folks. And there was an ad hoc committee that was created to discuss next steps and develop media messaging and hold some of our health partners accountable for increased outreach related to prevention and testing and other health resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Roscoe. I'll just add for that on Friday, I did a half-an-hour interview with Univision as well about the YOLO specific information and strategies that residents both in our community, obviously, but through the region, Latinos of all backgrounds should be aware of in terms of what the best steps are, but also some of the data that you just shared. So thank you for your leadership in that regard. Councilmember Guerrero?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On June 26th, the Regional Water Authority convened, and we were discussing the strategic planning. So it was a workshop for the coming year. And I also met with a Latino outreach group with Councilmember Orozco, participated in that. Been reaching out to regionally to other organizations, asking for coordinated approach, and fortunately we were able to participate in this organized effort, which included a number of healthcare providers and community-based organizations that provide targeted outreach to the Latino community because of the increase. And the essential workers are those that are in the front lines and working in the grocery stores, cleaning offices and hospitals, and making sure that they have access to PPE and other protections so that they don't get COVID, and then when they return home, pass it on to their family members. And so very grateful for the opportunity and the continued work that we're going to be having on this particular issue.
Other reports or communications? Councilmember Ledesma.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So first of all, one report tonight, which was last week ago, Monday, the 29th, was the final meeting of the Mayor's Commission on Climate Change. It was a big lead up, a lot of work. Unfortunately, I won't say it was stalled out, but it was the pandemic certainly hampered our ability to meet in person and get it was an effort to kind of keep the momentum going, but I'm really proud of the work that commission ended up at. And that night we did approve the final recommendations that came out of the Climate Commission. It's been a year and a half of work, and so I want to thank the mayor for appointing me to that board a year and a half ago, whenever that was. And it was a real journey to understanding and learning about the challenges on climate change that we face. And there was no better time to have that conversation as we're all on a Zoom call like we are today, and the pandemic, to kind of rethink or think more about the effects of climate change and the impacts. But the recommendations were adopted unanimously. There was quite a few really good best practices that were from West Sacramento that were discussed throughout that, particularly our work in VIA, the work we're trying to do on transit, and all the active transportation work that we work on that help our city were kind of part of that conversation, and that's a good thing. As a reminder to my council members, these are recommendations coming out of the commission that during points of the year, David Tilley staffed it, and we'll be working towards sort of how the city will adopt one of those things. I want to call out a couple of changes that came about, and some that were very timely for us. One was in the report and final recommendations, and one had to do with the electrification part of the built environment. That is, the agreement on how going forward new construction and electrification mandates might be implemented. And so there was just about unanimous consideration and approval of an amendment that basically eliminated fossil fuel use in new low-rise buildings, which is defined as 4 stories or less, in new low-rise buildings by 2023, and then all buildings by 2026. And that's on, again, new construction. So I think that's an area where we have a opportunity, and I'll get to that in a second because that depends on really our provider. And another amendment we were able to get into the report, and the report, the commission unanimously approved on a statement of advocacy to the city of West Sacramento from them, which was around our utility provider, and advocated that West Sacramento work to resolve the challenges in our electricity service, our reliability, our cost competitiveness, infrastructure rates, and local climate investments due to the asymmetry in electric utility providers, and that they support the transition of West Sacramento to a more climate supportive utility service that would enable the city to implement the full suite of proposed strategies. I think that was a big amendment for us. It was seconded by Mike Teal, who, as you know, is the owner and CEO of Rayleigh's, and one of our largest headquarters here on the business side. But climate change is something that I think we all agree is important and a priority for us. And it was widely acknowledged as the city of Sacramento went through the same exercises. SMUD was at the table with them and is going to be a partner for them to help reach these. And we don't share the same level of partnership with our utility provider. And this is a real challenge for us. It's been a challenge for a long time. And I know we've talked about it as a council before, but to have the endorsement and recommendation from this unanimous support from the commission of leadership from throughout the region, including SMUD. The head of SMUD, while he couldn't endorse any specific cause, he endorsed the idea of us going on this endeavor. This is a big win for us to have that kind of endorsement, and sets us off, I think, on a journey to where we can really start digging into how we can solve our long-term energy reliability costs, infrastructure, and all the things we desperately need to achieve our climate goals, and just to have fairness for our residents and our businesses. And I think that's an important part. I was really, really pleased to be able to make that motion and get that second and have the commission finalize. So I think that's something that I know our city staff has, I think, put on, I think, in the future agenda item on a policy agenda or on how we might go about that. But hopefully taking that one finding should be a first step for us. And we got a road ahead, but I think this really paved a good way for a good start for us to get moving on this agenda item. So again, that was our last meeting. It ended with that really great sort of endorsement of our challenges and the work, support of the work we have to do. But we have a lot more work to do, and we'll take those findings back. And as we progress in the year, and we're already underway, and our climate action plan, David Tilley's work team is working on. I'm sure he'll have more updates for us as we get closer to that. But again, really proud of the work we've done, and looking forward to kind of bringing some of this change back to us. So that's all I have to report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Ledesma. I want to just add my thanks. I know this is a very busy time for you in your professional responsibilities as well, and there was a lot of negotiations and efforts and advocacy involved in order to get this across the line. And folks often forget that Sacramento's 10 times bigger than us almost, and whereas their city has 1,700 staff working on this, and their council member has a staff of his own. Mr. Ledesma and Mr. Tilley, with a couple of friends in City Hall, have done an enormous amount of work and have helped to craft a document that reflects many of our achievements in West Sacramento, but more importantly, reflects the critical priority that we've set around climate change, and in a very West Sacramento way, the actions needed in order to really grapple and to defeat it. So I think our intention is to invite the chair and/or executive director of that commission, along with Mr. Ledesma, to give an overview presentation of the whole report at an upcoming meeting as well, so the council can be familiar with the report in its entirety. And then, as Mr. Ledesma said, then the individual recommendations that are relevant here could move forward after the council sees the package. So again, thank you, Mr. Ledesma, for your strong leadership on this one. Mayor Pro Tem Sandin. All right. I had a couple of reports. First, we facilitated a national webinar on summer youth employment opportunities on Monday. That was my last job as the chairman of the Jobs, Education, and Workforce Committee for the United States Conference of Mayors. I'm being succeeded by the mayor of Stockton, Michael Tubbs, who is going to be leading that work as well. We're close partners. But we convened a webinar for mayors and for workforce development staff around the country around how do you still do summer youth employment in a period of COVID? And we've obviously had a story to tell here because of the work that we've been doing on Home Run and other activities, but also a lot of really interesting and ambitious work that's happening in cities around the country. So that was very positive. I've stepped down as chairman of that committee because I was just elected last week to serve as a trustee of the United States Conference of Mayors. That is it's hard to explain the structure of the Conference of Mayors, but that was for a small town, that was a pretty big deal, and I'm really grateful to have the support of a lot of other mayors who kept saying that West Sacramento just keeps showing the way around the country when cities big and small, but especially the small and medium-sized ones, aren't sure what they can do. They always look up West Sacramento because they know that they're going to find something innovative and interesting that actually got done and that is making a difference. And what a terrific endorsement of the efforts in this community to keep leading the way, to keep pioneering in order to serve our people. I was also asked to co-chair a national working group of mayors with the small task of disrupting systemic racism. So I'm going to be chairing that along with the mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms, and the mayor of Augusta, Georgia, Hardy Davis. Our colleague Mayor Tubbs from Stockton is going to be chairing a similar group on ending poverty. So this year the Conference of Mayors is not holding anything back in terms of the scale of what we're attempting to do, but really looking at cities and at local governments, what are the actionable items that we can undertake to deal with the issues that began to get the public attention that they deserved a little over a month ago, but that exist throughout our cities, through our zoning codes and our land use and our history, as well as some of our other policies. And so I'm a little worried about such a big assignment, but I'm also excited about the opportunity to tackle something. I know this council, every member of this council has been a loud voice and actor in terms of doing what we can in this city to lead on ending systemic racism. Also, our city school 2x2 met this week as well. Myself and Councilmember Orozco, along with trustees Jackie Wong and Kobe Pizzotti from the school board, met with the city manager and assistant city manager and the superintendent Linda Luna. And we had two major items that we wanted to share with the council. One is the school district, as the council is aware, is grappling with exactly how to handle its plans for the fall in terms of reopening and hybrid and blended approaches that may involve some in-person instruction and some remote or distance or online instruction as well. They're still figuring that out. Of course, we have nothing to do with that. They're an independent government. But one of the key issues that they're grappling with is what to do about childcare, especially for their teachers and other personnel who will be working all day long as different cohorts of students come in. So they raised the issue, and obviously this is a problem not just for teachers in the community. We face many West Sacramentans are and will face even more challenges with respect to childcare. We don't run a childcare system in West Sacramento. We don't have the power to simply deliver hundreds of childcare opportunities directly. But of the cities in the region, we're one of the best connected with the private and nonprofit and public sector childcare providers that are out there. And so our staff are going to be working with them to identify the capacity that is available, and then to reach out to the childcare providers to help to assure that some of the priorities that many of them agreed to early on in the pandemic when we first began working with them, to prioritize essential workers, that they continue to do so, but also account for the critical need for teachers as well. So there's a much bigger set of issues there, but this is one of the key decision metrics for them in terms of what they can or cannot do in terms of the fall for classes reopening. And then the second was the board gave us a briefing about their proposed bond measure, which will appear on the November ballot, a $150 million bond for modernization and improvements, and particularly with the lens of equity, to bring every school in West Sacramento up to snuff, and to make sure that every child has the chance to learn in facilities that are modern, and that are safe, and that are cool in the summer. All of the basics that we know are necessary for effective learning. So Councilmember Roscoe and I will be bringing forward at some point in the near future a proposal for the council to support the bond measure as well, but wanted to share that update with the council. And then last, I think the council is aware, but the superintendent is going to be retiring. Superintendent Linda Luna, who has been just an extraordinary force in our community. I have to say, in the 2 decades I've served on council, she has been just the finest superintendent that this community has had in at least that time. And her laser focus on achievement and on equity, on raising the bar, but also around engaging and involving parents and students and teachers and community members together to both make our schools even better, but also to help make sure that people in our community know that. And the work that we've done together on the home run to try to make sure that people in West Sacramento know and keep working to make this the best place in America to raise a family and the best place to grow up, is due in no small part to her willingness to be innovative and her board to support her in the work that we've done together. So I know we both have expressed our appreciation to her, and I hope we'll have the opportunity to have her at council at least one more time. She has always with an eye towards the health of the district and the students. Her retirement is going to happen in January, so she's committed to completing the work on the reopening plans for the fall, as well as the bond and the search for her successor and other key priorities. So we have her with us for a little while longer, but it's both sad news for us, but well-earned retirement for her. All right, so with that, then we'll go to item 1C, and this week we do have appointments to make. We had suspended making appointments during the period in which none of the commissions were meeting due to the pandemic, but we have restarted those commissions to have meetings where those meetings are essential in order to advance city business. And so I'm going to make 3 nominations this evening. First, 4. First to the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission. I am appointing the current alternate to the commission, Alicia Olson, to serve as a regular member of the commission, and appointing Marvin Diaz as the new alternate to the commission. For the Board of Appeals, it is the alternate slot that is open. This is the board upon which Councilmember Orozco served, in addition to the Parks Commission, before becoming a member of the council. I am appointing Blake Sequeira, who is a homegrown West Sacramentan, a lawyer, but also a civil engineering background, which is a key role for the Board of Appeals in its review of code enforcement and other matters. And then finally, for the Transportation, Mobility, and Infrastructure Commission, appointing Samar Lichtenstein, who is she is a resident of Broderick who works in the Executive Office of the California Air Resources Board, and has a lot of background and experience and knowledge in the areas of mobility, alternative modes of transportation, and the relationship both to air quality and the environment, but also and especially to environmental justice. So those are the 4 appointments that I'm making, and would ask if there's any questions or discussion, or if not, if there's a motion to approve them.
So moved. I support those recommendations.
Martha, second.
All right, thank you. So it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Sandin and seconded by Councilmember Guerrero that those appointments be approved. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Orozco,
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandin,
Aye.
Councilmember Guerrero,
Aye.
and Mayor Cabaldon.
Aye. And so that motion carries. Thank you very much, and thank you to the 4 individuals for stepping up to serve. And I interviewed quite a few people for these lots, because as the council knows, we are a very active community, and to our great fortune in West Sacramento, a lot of residents have been signing up in these last few rounds to serve on commissions. And I love doing the interviews because you get to hear about alternative visions and perspectives on the city but really appreciate the willingness of these 4 individuals to serve for the remainder of this year. All right, so that brings us to, we have no consent agenda tonight, so we'll proceed to the regular agenda, which is item 2, consideration of reaffirming the proclamation declaring a local emergency in response to the global COVID-19 outbreak and adopting resolution 20-69 to modify the city council regular meeting schedule. Mr. Droz?
Hello, good evening, Mayor and City Council. As Mayor stated, this is a dual recommendation to extend the state of local emergency, reaffirm it, I should say. This was previously reaffirmed in May and is set to expire July 12th. So as you're all well aware, COVID-19 continues to be to spread, and is an emergency on the ground at all levels of government. And as the city continues to expend funds to respond to this pandemic, it's important to keep the local emergency in place so that we can ultimately apply for and be reimbursed for our expenses in this effort. Should the council reaffirm this local emergency, it will extend it 60 days to September 10th. And so along with this recommendation is a resolution to adjust the regular meeting schedule going forward through that date. The council had previously adopted a weekly meeting schedule, as you all are well aware, to extend through July. We're now proposing a meeting schedule that would be 3 times a month, with the no meetings taking place on the last weeks of July and August. Our anticipation that the meeting schedule and the local emergency will be reevaluated the council in early September. With that, happy to take any questions.
All right, other questions for Mr. Droz? Councilmember Guerrero.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple of questions regarding, first of all, the federal funding that we can qualify for. Can you give me a little background on the funding that you're referencing that requires an emergency declaration?
So this is, I'm probably going to need to defer to someone with a little more X on the emergency fund specifically are reimbursed, but my understanding is that through FEMA and through the state Cal OES, we are eligible to recoup funds that are spent in response to an emergency. And it's basically a threshold question as to, is this local emergency in place? If so, then we can go through that application process. I want to be clear, I'm not speaking to the CARES Act Coronavirus Relief Fund funding that recently was allocated through the state budget. This would be disaster-related, emergency-related funding, and I'd welcome. I know we have the city manager here, or anyone else from the EOC that might be able to speak to more detail than that.
Yeah, I think I'll just add that in my weekly COVID report, there is a section on this in the financial section. I think it's in this week's version. It's on page 13. There's a list of eligible expenses that can be subject for FEMA reimbursement. So I would just refer you to that for the list of types of expenses that are reimbursable.
Okay, thank you. And also for the eviction moratorium, does this extend the time for the moratorium? Is that tied to this, or is it tied to the governor's emergency declaration?
No, it's actually tied to the governor's declaration, which is also an update in the report I'm going to get to later. But it was extended is the short answer until
Okay.
I think the date September 30th. I'll look at that in the meantime, but it's not tied to this declaration.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there other questions? Yeah, I mean, I think we're not having a vigorous debate about this because the situation is so clear in terms of where we have been and the trajectory, but also the numbers and the people from the last several days and weeks, with the dramatic increase in hospitalizations, the 0% availability of staffed ICU beds in Yolo County, the dramatic increase in cases, virtually every indicator. The testing system regionally having to close centers for lack of supplies, and our own asymptomatic testing center also running short of supplies and unable to process tests as quickly as we need. So that the emergency is certainly at least as intense as it was at the last point that we affirmed this declaration. So to me, there's no question that given where we're at, this is critical. Of course, it is also important to emphasize that we don't have most of the levers in this issue. With respect to shelter-in-place or stay-at-home orders, that's the county and the state. Whatever happens in the schools is the decision independently of the Board of Education and the school district. Our job is principally in assuring that the city stays operating, that the essential services that we provide get taken care of, and as Councilmember Roscoe reported, assuring that the most vulnerable are protected in our partnerships with the county and Project Roomkey and others, and particularly the homeless population, and being an advocate for our people when some of the other systems have sometimes not seen what's been going on here. So we clearly have an emergency. The amount of funding sources, it can be confusing, of course, as Mr. Laurel said. There's regular emergency assistance money. There's money from the original CARES Act, and then there's CDBG extra money. And we didn't receive any money from that original CARES Act. The city of Sacramento received nearly $90 million. And if we received our share, our equivalent share, we got about $10 million. So and we got none. And so it's a challenge for us as we watch our neighbors across the river do what they need to do in terms of helping to support nonprofits and local businesses and direct support to residents and others. And our financial capacity to do that is extraordinarily limited because the cost of most of those programs is quite high. It's not $20,000 or $50,000. It's $250,000 or $500,000 in a city of our scale. And it's why it's so important. And the CDBG money, I should say, is very restricted in terms of how it can be spent. So it's so critical that this month the Congress adopt and take up the HEROES Act, and that they adopt that, because that would provide us with millions of dollars, which would allow us to meet the needs that every member of this council has identified in terms of human services and support of small business and safety measures that are necessary. So this is the top priority for the mayors of the United States and also for the National League of Cities. We're working very hard on this. We have a lot of support in the House. I want to thank our Congresswoman Matsui about this for her leadership on this too. But it is absolutely essential that pass so that we have the resources needed in order to deal with the effects of the pandemic thus far, not even counting the fact that the projections and forecasts now leave us in the pandemic for much longer than we had originally hoped. All right, so with that, is there any other discussion about item 2? And is there a motion?
So moved.
All right, Councilmember Roscoe moves. And Councilmember Ledesma seconds. So Madam Clerk, if you will, please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandin,
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco,
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma,
Aye.
Councilmember Guerrero,
Aye.
and Mayor Cabaldon.
Aye. All right, so that motion carries. That brings us then to item 3, which is consideration of an amendment number 2 to the employment agreement for the city manager. And this agreement was considered, the basic framework of this agreement was considered by the council in a prior closed session, and as a result of that unanimous direction, these are the provisions that were negotiated. I do want to point out, and Ms. Berlin is here, Assistant City Manager who oversees human resources as well, that the key provision that I know is different in this one is the highly unusual circumstance of having an emergency services director, which in this instance is a separate responsibility. So similar to a separate compensation that's been provided to prior city managers for their work at the helm of the Port of Sacramento, which is a separate agency. This is essentially for those who work or have worked in the public sector. I don't know, Mr. Ledesma can help us if there's a similar thing in the private sector, but out of class assignments, temporary assignments, those sorts of things are when you assign somebody an entirely new job, you have to account for that. And so that's essentially what this is doing. It is not a performance bonus. It's a recognition that in addition to all of the elements that are required to run the city day to day, that in addition to that, the Director of Emergency Services has specific and separate responsibilities under state law and under our West Sacramento Municipal Code that are above and beyond that work. So everyone in city government, including the council, but also nearly every one of our citizens has been working extra hard, and I think all of us recognize that and are grateful to the team. This particular situation is unique in that this position is created in the municipal code and supported through the state's Emergency Operations Center framework, and the responsibility to work through the county and statewide EOCs in order to protect the public in the absence of council oversight under the state of emergency is a special assignment or an out-of-class assignment to which the city manager is undertaking. He's not a civil service employee, and therefore the normal out-of-class rules don't apply at all. But so I'm not describing it, and I'm describing it that way simply for an analogy. But it's the same situation that we would do if we asked any of our employees to take on an entirely new job in addition to the job that they currently have. Member Pro Tem Cindy, was there anything you wanted to add as part of the subcommittee that worked through this with?
No, I think, as you stated, we took direction from the council's discussion, and that's what this reflects.
All right. Yeah, I want to thank Mr. Laurel, who we had a relatively quick and painless negotiation about this based on, since the council had identified the parameters that it was comfortable with, which was essentially this proposal. There are no additional changes or dollars or other things that are in this piece other than what the council had outlined. Councilmember Roscoe.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment that, I think it's pretty clear to many of the members of council and staff the level of work and commitment that Mr. Laurel has committed during these last several months, and much to the detriment to a lot of the time with his family and his children and others. To be completely 24 hours a day responsible and responsive to not only 5 council members, but an entire staff and an entire city with a variety of different events happening in the last several months, not only COVID related, but also related to safety in our city. So with that, I'm supportive of this item.
Thank you. Councilmember Guerrero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to bring to the attention of council the comments that were given to us, and they were concerns out of in referencing discussions. This was a concern of mine that I wanted to also bring to the attention of the public about the fiscal climate and the situation where at this point we are trying to be sensitive as we take a look at our budget. We have lost a considerable amount of sales tax revenue. And although it's not the biggest share of our base funding, it is a significant share where, I advocated for additional federal funding to reimburse cities, as you described, where Sacramento received $90 million and we received some money, but not a lot, as a result of a separate allocation through the hard work of the League of Cities to ensure that every city received a dedicated allocation. We have some, in the future, we do have some contracts that we will need to negotiate. And I just want to be sensitive that we have funding in the budget to meet our additional, cost increases in order to remain competitive as a city. And I really deeply appreciate everything, not to take away anything from what our city manager has done. He's done a tremendous job under the circumstances in a pandemic where nobody, has a manual or some kind of experience. This is all, thrusted on him and all of the staff who had worked tirelessly. And just a great, tremendous job that's been done. And also, I think some of this funding could be federally reimbursed. Some of what the salary is described here could be federally reimbursed, but I don't know that at this time. I don't have enough information to know exactly what could be, because I think that time that is dedicated for the pandemic, some of it is reimbursable. And I don't have that in the report to be able to make a decision on this today. And so for that reason, and it's really just because we have a really delicate fiscal situation that I want to be mindful of everything that we have to take into consideration in our budget, and would like to abstain from making a decision today.
All right, other question or discussion? All right, I'm certainly prepared to move forward with it. We don't know all of the fiscal environment. We do know that we are expecting another $600,000 from the state through the allocation that the Congress made through the states to cities that we haven't yet received yet, and the reimbursement as well. But the time to make an agreement with someone about what they will be paid to do a out-of-class temporary assignment is when they begin that assignment. Or you don't do that afterwards and say, well, we'll let you know. Do all the work, show up every Sunday, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night. And then at the end, we'll decide what resources we have. We don't do that with our other employees. When a police officer or firefighter is working that schedule, we pay overtime. It's the law. If to manage the organization, that's the only equitable outcome in this case too. So this is hopefully a modest amount. I mean, if the pandemic goes on for years and years and years, we'll have to revisit. But it's important that the city keep faith with the people that work for it and that do that work. And as Councilmember Roscoe has noted, everyone has worked extra hard. Some have been compensated for it, but no one has done more than our city manager and director of emergency services, because that was what he was called to do. And he had to both do that work, but also invent that work as it came, invent what this job really meant, because we've never faced a pandemic like this. There isn't, as a council member, there's no handbook. But any good faith public agency pays people for the work that they do, and that is the situation here. We're not going to know anything more about our financial situation next week or the week after that. So delaying this simply puts off a basic organizational and moral decision that we need to make. So I'm supportive of moving forward this evening. Councilmember Ledesma?
Thank you. I'm sorry to get to my mute button fast enough as you call. But yeah, I am supportive of this item, obviously, for, as my colleagues have stated, Aaron's done a tremendous job. And I do want to call out the fact that I know the entire city team is working tirelessly and trying to not just adjust their own personal lives and their professional lives through the pandemic, but trying to keep things moving. I think that's the part that why I'm so supportive of this, because we're still managing to provide services in our city as best we can, and the leadership that Aaron has showed to keep the city moving as best as it could in this COVID environment and manage this pandemic, and lead through this pandemic as through the emergency services office. It's really critical, and I agree that making this commitment just for the additional duties that have been called upon for 3 months now is appropriate. I think we're all cognizant of the sort of the budgetary issues or kind of what's ahead, but after our last conversation in May, there was some confidence there. We know we're taking an impact that we could absorb. The thought process then was we could absorb some costs. We know some of this might be reimbursable, and we just need to commit to our team. And here, the leadership is right. So with that, I'll move the recommended action.
And I'll do a second, please.
Been moved and seconded. Mayor Pro Tem Sandine, further discussion?
Yeah, and we did receive, as Councilman Guerrero mentioned, we did receive public comment on this.
Yeah, Madam Clerk, can you, we've now, a couple of folks have said it on council, but if you could just verify that we have received comments on this item.
Yes, we did. We have 3 public comments.
All right, those are available on the website. All right, so the motion is to approve the following items. Approve the July 8th, 2020 Amendment Number 2 to the City Manager Employment Agreement between the City Council and Aaron Loyal for the position of City Manager, and adopt Resolution 20-75 appropriating funds for Amendment Number 2 to the City Manager Employment Agreement for FY 2019-2020. Those funds are in the amount of $4,000 per month from March 16th until the lifting or the expiration of the local emergency declaration. Mr. City Attorney, does that satisfy our obligations in terms of the reading into the record the action that's before us?
Yes, we need a summary of the change in compensation, and I think that reflects it.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so with that then, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Councilmember Ledesma.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandine.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Councilmember Guerrero.
Abstain?
And Mayor Cabaldon.
Aye. So that motion carries, and that brings us then to item 4, which is update and actions on the city's COVID-19 response. Mr. Laurel.
Thank you, and good evening again, Mayor and council members. We have a fairly lengthy update tonight compared to some of the past weeks. I did have quite a few things I wanted to touch on. Just begin with, I wish I had better news about the COVID situation in Yolo County and in the city, but the numbers just don't reflect that reality. We, as of today, this is news that we just got this morning. The Yolo County has been added to the monitoring list in the state. The county had already moved to implement the restrictions that our neighboring counties were under once they were placed on the monitoring list in Sacramento and Solano, including limiting indoor dining and bars. So those are not allowed. And those are really on a practical level, those are the effects on our city. We don't have some of the other uses in town here, like movie theaters or museums and some of the other things that are on there. But we have been operating under that, but we are now officially on the monitoring list. The primary reasons for that are twofold. One is that we have exceeded the acceptable rate of disease transmission. We now have more than 100 cases per 100,000 residents over a 14-day period. That's one of the state standards. The other one is actually more important at this point, which is hospital capacity, particularly in the other cities in Yolo County. The metric is if there are less than 20% of staffed ICU beds available, that's another trigger for being on the monitor list. And as of today, there are 0 ICU beds available in Yolo County. Obviously, our numbers are more tied to hospitals in Sacramento, which are also heavily impacted. But for those reasons, those are the primary reasons why Yolo County is now on the monitoring list. In terms of the case data, the numbers are in the report. There was another very large jump countywide today. I believe there were 37 new cases in Yolo County, most of them in Woodland, but there were quite a few in West Sacramento as well. You can see in the highlighted data in the report, we've had the biggest jump that we've seen throughout this entire time in the last couple of weeks. Each week alone was bigger than any other week prior. So obviously there's much more work to do now in terms of getting this under control. A lot of the things I'm going to report on have to do with that, but we're going to start with the data. And like I said, the case data is very discouraging at this point. So now on to some of the more detailed related topics. So one is regarding enforcement. So one of the main preventative measures that we all know are really important right now is to wear masks, and also compliance for not just businesses, but also organizations like churches and other community organizations that typically have gatherings. The compliance with the public health order is more important than ever right now. And related to that, making sure that businesses that are willfully non-compliant are penalized accordingly to not make the situation worse. So just yesterday, the County Board of Supervisors, you probably all saw this news, they adopted an ordinance and other measures that give them essentially more enforcement authority within the county and steeper penalties for businesses that are willfully non-compliant. There is an ordinance that now allows the county, and it designates certain officials that have the authority to impose these penalties. They can issue citations that can be accompanied by fines for violators ranging all the way up to $10,000. So that ordinance is enforceable by the county within the cities. We've discussed with the county the potential to have the cities adopt conforming ordinances, but I know Jeff Mitchell has had conversations with county council as soon as today, and we believe that the county has the authority to enforce within the city. We're working out some of the finer details of it. For example, we want to make sure that our code enforcement officials, because they have been our main source of enforcement, have the ability to act on that ordinance. And so we'll definitely report more on this next week as we get more information together. But we definitely want to work with the county to make utilization of these new tools to the extent it's needed. We hope it's not, but we've tried the voluntary compliance, the education, the outreach, and the bottom line is some uses just aren't following what they should be doing. And so we're at this drastic point where this additional measure is needed. So Also related to the cases in Yolo County, the mayor mentioned earlier some of the challenges with testing, both on the supply side. Locally, what we're experiencing is delays. What we're told is the labs that are processing the tests have been backed up, particularly on the OptumServe location, which is the site at Riverbend. And as a result of that, there are many people that are reporting to us, and I know to some of you, that they've taken a test, and in best case, they get it, 10 days later. Worst case, there's actually been some that they've had to go back and retake. So, we know enough about this virus by now that a test that is taken one day and the results aren't reported until 10 days later is fairly pointless, because especially if you're doing asymptomatic testing, the goal is to try to find out that you have it before you actually display symptoms. And so that's something that we're asking questions about. We understand it's bigger than West Sacramento and even Yolo County. Those labs process tests from all over the place. And I know everyone's working hard to get that corrected, but that is a reality that we're facing right now. The testing side of Riverbank Road, I have confirmation today that we believe that it will cease operations on July 25th, at which point it'll move back to Woodland. But we are looking at other options. I don't have anything definitive to report right now, but other options to keep testing going in West Sacramento. We do have the other available testing options that have already been in place at some of the pharmacies and through Communicare and Elica. But the OptumServe site has been processing a full case load per day. I think we're around 140 a day, so it's great that it's going to be here for another few weeks, or another couple weeks, but it is expected to leave the city as of July 25th. Let's see. So the next topic I wanted to talk about was related to our housing and social services in that section. Several updates to report here. The first one that Councilmember Guerrero asked about earlier was the eviction moratorium. And I believe it was June 30th, the governor issued a new executive order. And just to remind everyone, if I can get this right, our moratorium was tied to the executive order, and that the order suspended the rules that prevent cities from doing eviction moratoriums on their own. And so our moratorium tied to that executive order, and now that's been extended through September 30th. So it still applies to both residential and commercial properties. And we have updated our website, which is still on this chart on page 14 in my report, that has all the forms and information for anyone who is looking to utilize that moratorium. Other than that, just want to give another couple updates related to housing and homelessness. Next week at City Council, you'll see two items that are referenced in this report. One is an extension of the Downtown Streets Team contract. Believe it or not, that's up for renewal. It has been running on basically a fiscal year basis. And then the other one is related to CDBG. So as you know, we received about $270,000 in CDBG COVID money. That's money that has to be spent on CDBG eligible activities. And our staff has done quite a bit of work to analyze different options for that. They'll be coming back with a workshop next week. No action will be taken then, but we'll be recommending essentially that the money be focused on homelessness and related to Project Room Key and Home Key, which I also wanted to give you a quick update on. So Room Key continues to wind down. So as a reminder, Room Key is the state-funded program the county has been running under coordination with our homeless coordinator and the nonprofit sector. A lot of help from different agencies there. We're down to the three properties that are currently that have always been the Room Key properties, but it's starting to phase out. But as we're phasing out, we are also looking ahead to Project Home Key. Home Key is the governor's proposal that was approved by the legislature in the budget that allocated upwards of $1 billion towards the acquisition of motels and other forms of housing to maintain what I'll call interim or permanent supportive housing using those properties for the idea is to keep the Room Key residents housed for as long as possible. So obviously we are interested in this program given the predominance of motel properties in West Sacramento and the fact that we've been utilizing those for Project Room Key. We don't have a whole lot of detail yet other than the basics. We're anxiously waiting on a notice of funding availability to come out. It was expected to be this week, and hopefully we'll still see it this week. We have at least started discussions with some of the motel owners that we've been working with, but we do have lots of options on the table there. We have 27 motels and other options for how we might deploy those resources. But the most important point is going to be when we see the NOFA, what are the restrictions that would be layered on in terms of the longevity of the use. We're interested in having the option to utilize a motel, let's say, for interim supportive housing use that could then transition people over to our permanent supportive housing project, which is now under construction. It'll be service ready in a little over a year. But the intent would be to utilize motels as interim sources of permanent supportive housing until our permanent housing is available. So we'll be continuing to look at that, and if it does look promising, I imagine we'll be back to council for a resolution to apply at an upcoming meeting. I wanted to give a couple other points on business related items. So it's kind of buried in here, but it's very notable. I think it was June 24th, through a partnership between the West Sacramento Chamber and the city, the county made available thousands of masks, and the chamber stepped up and we helped store them, but they did all the distribution to companies. And so over 100 companies in the city ended up receiving over 34,000 masks. And those are meant both for employees, but also for customers that come in and don't have them. So it's a way to encourage compliance with the mask order. So we're very happy with the level of distribution that reached that program enabled. And then also there's a fairly lengthy update in here about the business impact survey. I reported previously on the results of the initial survey that was done, I believe in April. The second survey went out, and the data is kind of dated a little bit, but it's from May. It gives you an idea of some of the companies in town that did or didn't utilize some of the federal programs that came out, and some other information in there as well. There is one more survey that I believe has already gone out and been completed, and we'll report back on that. This information, it both gives us a good idea of what businesses are facing right now, but it's also important for us as we project things like impacts to revenue, knowing who's open, who's affected, and who's not. It's all good information for us to receive as we look ahead. So that completes all the items that I had planned to update tonight. All the updates are highlighted as usual, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to take those this time. So thank you.
Other questions for the Director of Emergency Services? Councilmember Guerrero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple of questions regarding the information you shared. On the businesses, has there been outreach to the Latino, businesses that, where the Latinos frequent, to be able to have access to the mask usage? And also on like a mask use program, Mr. Dylan Scherer, a constituent, has put together, I think, a program that would be something we can consider to have at locations where people can be ambassadors watching. It can be, anybody from like Target or Walmart. They have somebody at the door who's monitoring who's walking in the door. And Nugget also has a good person who is in the front. But try to make that a little broader in locations such as like Planet Fitness, where I don't see mask usage in there, and other locations where they're not in compliance with mask usage. So, places that are just challenged in being able to comply with that, if we can consider a program to enforce that mask usage.
Okay, yeah, on your first question, just to clarify, while the chamber took the lead in producing and distributing the survey and also the mass distributions, it wasn't limited to chamber members. They actually utilized our business license information. So, so to answer your question more broadly, if it's a business in West Sacramento that had a business license, then they were notified, and it was up to them to respond to the survey or take advantage of the masks distribution. But we don't have I don't have at least in my fingertips a whole list of all the businesses that participated, but I can tell you the reach was very expansive. It was not just chamber members; it was every business in the city.
Other
Okay.
questions?
And also the foundation, I wanted to get an update. I know Mayor Pro Tem Sandine has been working on that, and there is a couple of providers who are interested in being a recipient of a grant, and they were denied. And I'm just trying to get more of a sense of the criteria and making sure that we in our region are having folks apply, be able to be recipients, so it's equitably distributed countywide. And if there's a way to help those providers to provide a resource and support so that they can qualify, because I think that one of them provides outreach and support for domestic violence, and there's a surge of domestic violence and child abuse. So I think that would really be beneficial to have them be funded, but be interested to know a little more from you.
Yeah, I'm happy. I think I can provide a fuller report next week. I can ask the city manager to attach it to his, where there's a list of all of the nonprofits that applied and then all those that got funded. I think that's able to be shared publicly, and it was highly competitive, and there was a lot of interest, as you can imagine. So they still are doing fundraising for the fund. The group will be meeting monthly now to look at the proposals. Some are being held to be looked at if there are more funds coming forward, and some for a variety of reasons in terms of the numbers that they serve, for example, so the reach, and then the timing of their services, et cetera, because it's very tied to services being done now for folks being affected by the COVID crisis. So there are a number of issues in terms of the review that was done. And I know that the executive director of the Old Community Foundation has been trying to work for the non-funded organizations to try to figure out other options for them to get funding. In fact, I was involved with one. A nonprofit that actually serves West Sacramento was not funded, but we were able to connect the organization with a fund holder of the Old Community Foundation that may have an interest in that particular area. So I know that some of that work is continuing, and I really appreciate the interest of the council, and the nonprofit communities have just done so much and stepped up in some cases without having resources and trying to get things done for us. So, but I'm happy to provide a much fuller report and ask the city manager to attach that to next week's meeting agenda.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem, for your leadership in the piece. I think we know nobody was denied a grant, but there were so many worthy applicants, and there's only $365,000 that were awarded in the entire county. And I know, and as you've reported several times here, that the committee placed a high priority on emergency service providers, not fire and police, but the food bank, Meals on Wheels, Empower YOLO, the Children's Alliance, and others that have been on the front lines from the beginning. And so hopefully under your leadership and former Mayor and Supervisor McGowan, we'll be able to get some more money in that fund in order to be able to fund even more. But as I understand, nobody was said, no, you don't deserve a grant. There's only $365,000 right now for a county that has almost that many people. So there just isn't yet a huge fund. It makes a significant difference, particularly for those that have been meeting over these last few months the most direct service needs that our residents have been facing. All right, other questions for the city manager or Councilmember Ledesma?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Aaron, for the update. I do have a question, a couple of questions. First, on the enforcement part of what the county ruled on, and it's pretty clear cut. But I want to go back to the eviction moratorium. That doesn't. We still have our moratorium that there's an enforcement part in our city ordinance. Is that right? For those landlords that may go outside of our processes. So that's still outside of what was voted on by the supervisors. Is that what you're saying?
For the eviction moratorium, we have our local moratorium, so that's still the operative moratorium is the city of Sacramento one that the council voted on. I believe it was back in.
That's still in place, and
Yes.
so the enforcement rules that the supervisors voted on don't impair that or change that or supersede that at all.
We're talking in terms of evictions.
Yes.
I don't believe so. Jeff may have a clarification there, but
No, the county's ordinance is really for enforcement of public health orders, which would be distinct from the eviction moratorium.
All right. And thank you. I just want to be clear on that. I got a question on that this week, and I think this is going to get tougher and tougher to manage, right? And I appreciate the update and the very sobering, disappointing news on where cases are going. Today's news of no ICU beds available in Yolo County, and that as we move forward into a pandemic that isn't waiting at all, how we move forward and on these types of enforcement actions are going to be important. I don't want to minimize at all the great work the city has done and the awareness that everybody has done to try to, I think a lot of individuals, businesses have tried to do the right thing. I don't want to minimize those efforts at all, but this is showing that it's going to take a much more concerted effort and to kind of stem this tide of cases and to try to keep our hospitalizations down and those that are actually suffering and the fatalities down. I think it's just really an important message to get across. I want to as we move forward on these moratoriums, I know look ahead at the business survey, and it's just going to be really important, Mayor. I know you brought up earlier the work that has to be done on the advocacy part on the federal legislation, which you know, and I work around as well. But the business survey, that's May. It's good to see a lot of businesses took the PPP money, as much as that's being a bit stigmatized now. It was there for folks to employ people, and that's a good thing. And I think as long as they used it the right way, and I'm glad West Sac businesses took advantage of it and were able to keep people employed. That's important. I think we're just going to be very, very diligent on our advocacy for more support at the city level through helping people help keep people employed. I think we're going to have to work, have our voices heard, as you talked about in the HEROES Act, where small cities got shut out, where there's now debate or there's debate now and around how to further support small businesses, how to support long-term effects of this. Bring out the moratorium because we can only hold up for so long. So it's going to have to a concerted effort for us to keep cases down, to try to abide by the rules that we've laid out. For businesses, that's going to be a tough adjustment. I think we have to find ways to work with you to get to those adjustments. And for those that aren't playing in or not abiding by the rules, I think the enforcement actions or at least that they could be enforced is key. Because I worry about the fact that as this drags on, it's going to be harder and harder to for employers to the federal government for help constantly down the line. And the sooner we can get this curtailed, I think it'll be better for everyone. And again, I know I'm sort of preaching to the choir here because all of you have done a tremendous job at informing and educating the public on what to do. And I appreciate all your voices in the city's work to do that. I'm just hoping everyone can start to take that to heart. And again, I appreciate just the work you're doing, and hopefully the message is getting across now. So I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ledesma. And I know the PPP list has now been made public, and the number of and the dollars that have flowed to West Sacramento businesses and nonprofits has been significant. And I know you personally were involved with counseling and helping several in order to get across the line with all the paperwork and all the other rules. And so appreciate your leadership in that space. Because we are exactly where we didn't want to be. In addition to the hospitalizations and the cases today, Yola reported two additional of our neighbors died. This is it is incumbent on each one of us and the whole community to transcend the silly debates about what's a percentage versus a fraction and how many cases are a result of testing. It is a massive distraction that is resulting in folks not complying, both businesses and individuals, and we are seeing the results. And what the reason why we were successful as a community and as a region in the first part of this stage one was that we summoned the solidarity, we summoned the discipline, we summoned the sense that we are in this together. And we're not doing that right now. Let's be very honest with ourselves. As a community and as a country, we're not doing that. And what we are reaping what we've sowed. And it is essential that every leaders at all levels of government, including us, stay focused on assuring that we have adequate testing and tracing, that we have the hospital capacity, and that these laws and rules are strictly enforced. We no longer can just hope to convince folks with a Facebook post or a tweet that maybe they should do the right thing. That is not working, and people are dying. And so it is incumbent on us, if we're going to avert the economic consequences that we're all aware of, that Councilmember Ledesma just outlined, but all of the inequality and equity implications of that as well throughout so many parts of our community. Our only hope is to be able to, as quickly as we can, stave off this pandemic from getting any worse. And we already know from the science that the number of cases leads almost directly to an increase in hospitalizations, which we have seen. And the number of hospitalizations almost certainly indirectly leads to an increase in the number of deaths. So that has already happened. But those cases and those hospitalizations have already occurred. And I know none of us want to be in a position, a community that's not want to be in a position where next week and the week after, many deaths are being reported in our city because we didn't take this seriously enough. I know this council has been firmly committed from the beginning, and our county was one of the first ones to take aggressive action. But the conditions on the ground are not good. And the debate and the battling that's going on among people around silliness, frankly, around how to interpret these numbers when the numbers are all going in the right direction and real live residents are dying, that we have to stay focused. And so I really appreciate the work of our staff and team. And as Mr. Ledesma said, the vast majority of our businesses are complying. And a majority of our residents are wearing masks and social distancing and not going to gatherings of any size with people outside of their household. But what we've seen in these last several weeks is that we must all do it. There isn't room for everyone just to do their own thing and then hope it works out. That the threat, the public health threat, is real, it is severe, it's significant, and it's going to take all of our efforts and all of our focus and all of our own individual leadership in the community in order to rally ourselves to find those better angels and that focus that we had as a community back in March and April, that we know it worked, and we have to get there again. We also saw during that period how effective our community was coming together to make sure everyone got fed, to make sure that we housed more homeless folks in our community than were reported homeless just a couple months prior. We achieved amazing, incredible things when we all came together as a community, a city, a county, our staff, and all of the volunteers and neighbors that did so much to rally around action. And we simply cannot afford to have tabletop debates and social media debates about whether there is such a thing as the virus or whether people are threatened, because it's clear that they are, and it is on us and on each member of the community to do something about it before it's too late. So thank you. Councilmember Roscoe or Cindy, did you have other comments? All right, then briefly, Councilmember Guerrero, we're typically going just around once, but let's go back for a moment.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, I did have a question regarding the CARES funding and eligible uses. And I'm coming back because I wanted to respond or ask to looking into further regarding those with extended utilization of the eviction moratorium, and whether the CARES funding or Project Home Key funding could be tapped to provide relief for those that are not going to be able to, pay back their rent, and just seeing what we can do to support and subsidize those that are really under, to be able to maintain that housing.
All right, thank you. Then with that, we're concluded with this item and we'll proceed to council calendar. Assistant City Manager Berlin.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. No updates tonight on the calendar.
All right, any questions on the no updates? Seeing none, City Manager reports.
No update also, thanks.
All right, any questions on those no updates? City Attorney reports.
It's a perfect trifecta. No updates.
All right, thank you very much. Any staff direction from members of the council? Seeing when we have no future agenda item requests. So with that, is our motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Ledesma and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Sandin that the meeting be adjourned. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Councilmember Guerrero,
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma,
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandin,
Aye.
and Mayor Baldwin.
Aye, that motion carries and the meeting is adjourned. Have a safe evening. Thank you all very much. Good night.
Aye.
Good night, everyone.